What if mouth breathing isn't just a habit, but a symptom? In today's episode, I'm joined by a guest who revealed something I hadn't fully understood in all my years in this field. Crooked teeth, small jaws, restless behavior, trouble with focus, even lingering speech sound errors can all be connected to how well a child is breathing. You'll hear how an underdeveloped airway affects far more than speech and behavior. When a child is mouth breathing, they don't get the deep restorative sleep that their growing brain desperately needs. When a child lacks deep sleep and proper oxygenation, everything from attention to learning can suffer. This episode is sure to be eye-opening, and be sure you listen all the way to the end because I've arranged something special for you. Podcast listeners are going to get access to a free online airway evaluation. It is a simple way to find out whether breathing might be part of your child's or your own challenges. You'll also hear about an exclusive discount for my local in-person students and listeners. So, if you or your child snores, mouth breathes, struggles with focus, wrestles with behavior, or has speech sound challenges, this might be the piece you've been searching for. And there is help for adults too. So when you listen, know that even though this episode is focused on children, it does pertain to adults too. You can still apply your listener discounts and freebies to yourself. Woohoo! Tune in to this episode. It might change everything for you and your child. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dina Lynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned, because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. In my work as a speech-language pathologist, I see kiddos with airway issues and airflow issues all the time. Frequently, parents talk with me about sleep disturbances and ADHD, and most of my students have a high palate and crowded teeth. I have wondered why these issues are so prevalent, and after this interview, I knew I had something to offer families beyond what I can provide as a speech pathologist. Seeing the ubiquitousness of these problems, I reached out to Dr. Ben for more information after our interview. He led me to an airway clinic in my hometown where my students and their families could be seen in person. After contacting that hometown clinic, I learned even more. They generously educated me with books, with an online video, and with conversation and observation. With all of this input, I can say with full confidence that I would recommend that every family take a look at airway, and evidence of an airway issue is mouth breathing. And you'll understand more after listening to this episode. After contacting my local office, Respirowell, They offered a discount to anyone who mentions the language of play. Not only that, they entirely sponsored today's show. And they learned from Dr. Ben. So here is my sponsor announcement. Thank you to Respira Well. If you live in Minnesota, Iowa, or Wisconsin, and you are tired of struggling with sleep apnea, Respira Well offers real CPAP alternatives. Call Respira Well or go to respirawell.com to schedule your in-person appointment for you or your child. When you mention the language of play, you will receive a lovely discount. Thank you, Respira Well, for bringing hope and healing to adults and children across the Rochester, Minnesota, and surrounding areas. Listeners, you can find their phone number and website in the show notes. Before we get started, I want to mention, too, that what you're going to hear today is going to challenge what you have understood so far in multiple areas. So I ask you to come with an open mind and an open heart of compassion when you realize, oh, this isn't how I've been doing things, or this isn't what I've been thinking. Be compassionate and open-minded, and you will learn something tremendous today. If after listening to this episode, you feel that Dr. Ben's program is the right fit for you, they have also an amazing opportunity for you. Our friends at Tooth Pillow are offering a free video assessment with a licensed airway dentist in your state, in addition to $200 off treatment. Instructions for claiming that are also in the show notes. Let's get started with today's episode. Dr. Ben Miraglia graduated from SUNY at Buffalo School of Dental Medicine in 1993. Dr. Miraglia is the VP of Clinical Education with Candid Pro. He's the Chief Clinical Officer at Airway Health Solutions and Tooth Pillow. Dr. Miraglia is widely recognized for his lectures and continuing education courses focused on clear aligner therapy and early craniofacial growth and development related to sleep-disordered breathing. Dr. Ben, I am so glad and honored to have you on this show. And I am really excited for you to connect the dots between speech and language development and mouth breathing. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about. We'll have a wonderful session, and happy to shed some light on all these wonderful things going on with the early growth and development to help the kids.
Thank you. All right, so when my child was young, she had I didn't know what was really going on with her. I brought her to a dentist. A dentist said to me, bring her to an orthodontist. I said, why? They said, because she's got some jaw stuff. I didn't know she had jaw stuff. When we brought her to an orthodontist, they actually put braces on her, and then I had this expander to put in her palate. And they told me that if I didn't change the way her jaw works, one side of her face would grow and the other side wouldn't. Talk to me about when a parent doesn't even know something is going on. What are some things we look for, and why does it matter? I mean, that was obvious, but only because I had a chain of people telling me to go look at it.
Sure. So we look at things a little differently today. And so the teeth are a symptom. So we view the teeth as a symptom, but there's a lot to see when we're looking at the teeth. And that is like the first thing a parent will notice. What do the teeth look like? So we'll talk about the baby teeth first, because that's usually between 3 and 5 years old. We've got these baby teeth in there. 6 years old, we start to get some new ones. So then we have a mixture of teeth, baby teeth plus some new teeth. But when we're first looking at baby teeth, one of the things we see that is super common, but not normal growth and development, is that the baby teeth are really close together and we don't have spaces between them. So we'll see a lot of children, 3 to 5 years old, the baby teeth are really cute looking, but they're tight together. There's no space between them. Now, to give some perspective, if the jaws are growing really well, the gap between the baby teeth would be the width of a nickel. So when you have a coins, you look at the coins, the nickel is the thickest one. That's a pretty good gap. For normal jaw growth, the baby teeth would be spread out by the width of a nickel. You'd see a significant gap between all the baby teeth. That's a predictor for, hey, your permanent teeth are going to come in really well. But when you don't have the space of a nickel between your baby teeth, your permanent teeth are coming in crowded. You will have crowded teeth, and secondarily a bad bite, which you were kind of guided towards, oh, your bite's going to be wrong on one side, and one side will grow, one side won't. Well, Seeing baby teeth that are close together, I mentioned that the teeth are a symptom. So we might recognize, okay, we don't have spaces. We know there's going to be crowding. Some people might notice a crossbite, meaning the top teeth are inside the bottom teeth. So if you think about the teeth like a shoebox, how a shoebox works,
Mm-hmm.
the lid goes and surrounds all the walls of the bottom box, right? So the lid goes over and surround. Our top teeth are supposed to surround the bottom teeth. So when we look at a smile, the top teeth should overlap the bottom teeth, the front and the sides. But when we use the word crossbite, it means the top teeth are inside of the bottom teeth. So they've crossed over to the other side. Could be on the right side, could be on the left side, could be in the front. It could be a mixture of those things. So we might look for teeth that are together. Okay, baby teeth too close, trouble. The permanent teeth will be crowded. So when we're 6 to 7, 8, when the new teeth are coming, we would notice crowded teeth, meaning, okay, the teeth don't fit. We have teeth that are coming in crooked. Now, crossbite is one thing we would see. Another thing we would see in the teeth, again, a symptom would be grinding. So a parent might even notice, hey, the baby teeth are shorter or getting shorter over time. A dental office would know. They would say, ooh, we're missing enamel. Your child's grinding their teeth. These are symptoms. And really what we have is symptoms in the teeth, the bite, and the grinding, so to speak, that will tell us the jaws are too small. So when you have symptoms, there's a cause. So if the teeth are close together, we know we're going to be crowded teeth later on. And then, of course, if the bite has some issue, if we don't have the right bite, again, a symptom, we're really looking at underdeveloped jaws. And when the jaws are too small, the baby teeth come in together and the permanent teeth come in crowded. When the jaws are too small, we end up grinding our teeth, which we're going to build these connections out through the conversation, but I want to let you jump in too.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here thinking to myself from a parent perspective. So, what do you do? I mean, those are bones. Like that's how it
Right.
grew. What does a parent do? So, you gave me some ideas of how to recognize that there's an issue, but then what?
Sure. So if we see the teeth as a symptom, then we think about, okay, the jaws are too small. And if we're 3 to 5 or 7 years old and we recognize, well, the jaws are too small, then we're looking at two opportunities. One is, are we treating the cause or are we treating the symptom? So like when I hear you mentioned having braces, braces treat the symptom. They're about the teeth. So we don't recommend braces at a younger age when it's, again, the braces will be focusing on the teeth. Braces treat the symptom. Earlier, we like to work on the foundation size. So if we're talking about the jaw size, we want to use different things. Now, expanders are part of the plan. You could have expanders. They do help the jaw size to get bigger. But even before expanders, there are opportunities at age 3, 4, 5, 6 to use what are called guidance appliances. So we loosely call them guidance appliances, but if you looked at one, it would look like a football mouth guard. You'd say, oh, you could put that in your mouth and run around and play a sport, and it would protect your teeth. It looks like a mouth guard, but these guides are built to address the undersized jaws. And when we're working our way back towards what our real problem is, when the jaws are smaller, there's a reason for that. And the jaws are smaller because of the jaw muscle dysfunction. So when our jaws are growing really well, it's because our tongue, lips, and cheeks are working properly. So when we have proper resting function and strength of the tongue, lips, and cheeks, then our jaws grow really well. That's when we see the gaps in the baby teeth and the permanent teeth come in just fine with no issues. But when the tongue, lips, and cheeks are misbehaving, and that's just a different word for dysfunctional,
Hmm.
when they do things differently, it doesn't promote jaw growth. So the tongue is the primary muscle involved. Its job is really to, one of its jobs is to grow the jaws, but it has to be resting and functioning properly to grow the jaws. If it's not resting properly or functioning properly, it doesn't exert pressure for the jaws to grow, so they don't grow. Then, when the tongue is dysfunctional or misbehaving, what happens is the lips and cheeks start to help it out. So they want to help because that's nice to help out. Well, let me help out my neighbor. But meanwhile, it's not helpful when the lips and cheeks get involved because when they're on the outside, when they start to work more, it squeezes us in. We need the inside working without the outside working for jaw growth. When the outside helps us, oh, the tongue's not doing its job enough. I could help out with this a little bit. Then what happens is we have more crowding of the teeth because the lips on the outside are overworking and they start squeezing in. So something a parent might notice, because I'm talking about the muscles and how they're resting and functioning. What does he mean? Well,
Hmm.
something to see would be a child might be chewing with their mouth open.
Ah,
Mouth open chewing because we're going to have to breathe through the mouth a little bit. And we'll get to the why in a second, but if the child has to breathe through their mouth a little bit to supplement airflow, they tend to chew with their mouth open.
well,
But in
isn't
order
that
to
something we
swallow,
just teach? Like, I want to address that because isn't that something we teach? Kids will naturally kind of chew with their mouth open until you tell them shut your lips, and then they close their
ah,
lips.
that is one direction. And
Okay.
another opportunity is that if we're talking about underdeveloped jaws,
Mhm.
when the jaws are smaller, and we had talked about the teeth being a symptom, but one of the other pathways when the jaws are smaller is it makes it almost impossible to breathe through the nose.
Okay.
So here's how that works. The upper jaw holds our top teeth in, but the upper jaw does build the nasal chamber right under our nose. So
Hmm.
the air has to go in our nose and pass through, we call it the nasal cavity. But
Hmm.
the size of the nasal cavity is based on how big the upper jaw is growing. So if the teeth are together or crowded, the jaw's too small. If the jaw's too small, the triangle of space that the air is supposed to go through is tiny. So I use my fingers to make a triangle. Basically, what we're doing, my thumbs are the roof of the mouth.
Okay.
So my thumbs are, if we look inside, we see the roof of the mouth, but that is the floor of the nose. And then my two fingers are the side walls of our nose, because our nose is basically a triangle.
Hmm.
So this triangle, when we remove the nose and we look inside, it's a triangle, it's an opening. But the bones are the upper jaw. So when the upper jaw is really grown nicely and the teeth are spread out, well, we have this size triangle. And it would look in the mouth like a shallow palate, not a vaulted high palate up there.
Ah.
But this triangle is nice and easy to breathe through our nose. But when we have a smaller upper jaw, the roof of the mouth rises up. So all of a sudden, my thumbs go higher, but the side walls come in. So this is the chamber we have to breathe through when the upper jaw grows well, but this is the chamber we have to breathe through when it doesn't. So the size of the upper jaw reduces the nasal chamber, and your brain knows about airflow and pressure. So when the air's not flowing through the nose well, the brain automatically changes the muscles to open the mouth. So mouth breathing is not really as much a habit as it is induced by poor nasal breathing. Your brain is using that as a safety mechanism to help you. Your brain is basically saving you from you're not breathing through your nose. I have to open the safety valve. I will open your mouth to let air leak in because you can't breathe well through your nose. So there's a trigger for that when there's a small enough chamber and the airflow is restricted just enough. And it doesn't take a lot because your brain knows, hey, oxygen is my number one fuel.
Yep.
Oxygen's the number one fuel. You have to be breathing well to keep the brain happy. Even a small change in the nasal chamber makes the mouth open. So it's an automatic, and there is really no way to tell a child now close your mouth to breathe through your nose or close your mouth while you're chewing because they have to supplement the air and your brain's fighting that. So the brain does that through fight or flight. You can't breathe through your nose, we're going to open your mouth. So it's a very tough exercise to learn to keep your lips together when you can't breathe well through your nose. It's an easier one to learn when you increase the space in your nose, which is where we're going. We'd like to grow the jaws a little more, get back to better breathing.
Okay. So backpedal on the shut your mouth when you're chewing. If a child can shut their mouth then when they're chewing, they are indeed getting enough air. It was a habit. Is that fair to assume?
If they can keep their mouth closed while they're chewing food, then the nose is usually breathing pretty well. And
Okay.
so if you notice your child chews with their mouth closed, that's a good start because then, okay, they're breathing through their nose. That's very nice. The next thing would be how are they swallowing? Because a proper swallow, that tongue function we're talking about, if the tongue is swallowing correctly, it does not involve the lips and cheeks. So the common pattern we'll see is the child will chew with their mouth open, but when they go to swallow, because the tongue can't do it alone, the lips get involved and the cheeks get involved, so they end up squeezing their face. So I'll come a little closer to the camera. This will look distasteful because it's chewing with your mouth open. You see a lot of this.
Mhm.
But then in order to swallow, we see this, squeezing the lips and cheeks. Because if the tongue has become dysfunctional, not functioning properly, the lips and cheeks have to help to push the food back. So all of a sudden we start swallowing with our face, but swallowing with our face squeezes us smaller. It prevents, it works against growth. So just real quick on the breathing, the upper jaw being small, we have trouble breathing through the nose. But when both jaws are small, which they're usually together, it's not like we have one big and one small. We usually have the same size. They're usually both small. When the lower is also small, well, the tongue space is reduced.
Hmm.
So both jaws too small, we have less space for our tongue. So our tongue doesn't necessarily grow to its size by the chamber it has. In fact, the tongue is going to become the size it's supposed to be. But if it's resting and misbehaving or dysfunctional, it won't be growing its own home. So what we end up with, smaller jaws, a tongue that could only be pushed backwards.
Uh,
So the teeth are this wall. We've got front teeth and side teeth. So when we close our mouth, you can kind of close your teeth together and your tongue can feel its chamber. Like you can move your tongue around in there. Okay, my tongue has an amount of space. But when the baby teeth are together, the tongue has less room. So when we close our mouth, the tongue goes back.
yep.
Now the air has to go in our nose through that smaller triangle. So your brain doesn't like that. It opens the mouth. But also your brain doesn't like when your mouth is closed, the tongue is pushed back, the air can't get behind the tongue. So the pathway for the air is through the nose, behind the tongue, and into the lung. So basically, smaller jaws come with difficult to breathe through the nose. Now we will mouth breathe. Mouth breathing opens the mouth, the tongue gets low, the air goes behind it, and now we've solved the poor nose breathing, except for the tiny problem that mouth breathing is very unhealthy.
Right.
It's a solution to I can't breathe through my nose. Opening my mouth seems like, well, that's a safety valve. It's a good thing to open your mouth when you can't breathe through your nose because you know what happens then. But mouth breathing is unhealthy. So now your brain has solved one problem, but it has another one to work on. Mouth breathing is unhealthy. What do I do next? And your brain keeps going trying to fix this. So sure enough, smaller jaws, when we see the teeth together, we have smaller jaws. Smaller jaws make for difficult nose breathing. Difficult nose breathing creates the mouth breathing. And the mouth breathing during the day or at night or both is wildly unhealthy.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. Go ahead and tell parents why that's wildly unhealthy.
Sure. So with mouth breathing comes a change in how we're getting the ingredients in the body. So we think about what we put in our body for fuel. I say fuel because I'm going to give an analogy to cars, but oxygen, we need air coming in. That is the number one fuel. The number two fuel is water. We need liquids. So water, I'll say water because it's the healthiest drink there is. Then we need food, nutrition. You got to put these three things to run. Well, you back up towards, okay, food. Well, the rule of threes is just generally, you could survive 3 weeks without food. You could survive 3 days without water, but air, 3 minutes. You got big problems without the air. So we're very sensitive to the breathing and the air. So now, air coming in the nose. The nose has like 21 different functions that it's going to do to the air. It's going to prepare it for the lung. So all of the filtering, the cleaning, the humidifying, the warming, the accelerating, the adding ingredients are added in there. All of that gets done so the air gets to the lung in a certain way. And then the lung gets to do its job perfectly. So our lung is going to exchange stuff, right? We breathe in, we're bringing in the good stuff. We breathe out, we're getting rid of the bad stuff. So bring the good stuff in, get the bad stuff out. Very simple exchanging, but it makes a difference. So if we breathe through our nose, that air is prepared perfectly. But if we breathe through our mouth, there's no preparation of that air. It's basically dirty air going in the lung. The lung can't work the same. So the difference I like to tell parents is, look, you have a high performance race car. You've got the Ferrari. Now that Ferrari takes a specialized gasoline to run and function properly, peak performance, win the race. Now, if you put that specialized gasoline in that Ferrari, you get on the track, you're going to do really well. You'll have peak performance, you have a chance to win the race. Okay, that's nose breathing. That's what nose breathing. Your child is a Ferrari or whatever you love. Your child is a Ferrari. But you breathe through your nose, you're getting the proper fuel for that child. Mouth breathing is taking that Ferrari, going to a regular gasoline and putting in the lowest level at a gas pump locally for that you could put in your car. Your regular car would be fine. But if you put that, we would call it a low grade gasoline in a Ferrari, it will not function the same on that track. It's going to underperform. Then, of course, it has no potential for reaching its highest potential, right? But it's going to break down. Now, slowly it will break down. That car does not last as long, can't perform the same, can't function at a high level, and basically it's going to then deteriorate. That's mouth breathing. Mouth breathing is a slow deterioration. It's the wrong fuel going in. The lung can't do its job the same. So basically, through the nose, the lung can get the best of the good stuff in and get the worst of the bad stuff out at the right rate. But when we're breathing through our mouth, we don't get as much of the good in. We get some of the good in and we get some of the bad out. Here comes the imbalance. Now our system is forced to deal with, wait a minute, you're not giving me the right ingredients and you're not getting rid of the garbage on time. And then the system malfunctions. Basically, every system in the body malfunctions from mouth breathing. So mouth breathing is very unhealthy, day, night, or both. And the more the child does, the more it grows. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. The moment you start seeing some mouth breathing, if you watch that child over time, they'll do more of it. It'll become more and more and more and more and more. And we want to reverse that. We need to get the jaws growing to get back to, nasal breathing is the key.
Okay. So, what is a parent to do when they discover this? And what about the parent that says, I've always breathed through my mouth?
Well, the parent who says I always breathe through my mouth.
Yeah, so they've never thought it was
Yeah,
a problem because they don't know anything else.
sure. It is the same for an adult, like an adult breathing through the mouth. It's not healthy. And really what happens is mouth breathing during the day is unhealthy. Mouth breathing while you're sleeping is worse. So it's not that there's a better time to do it. It really, we're supposed to be, a human being is an obligate nose breather. We're supposed to breathe through our nose 24/7 for optimal health. That's like a definitely a box to check for optimal health. And of course, there's a nice list for optimal health, right?
Mhm.
We got to breathe well. We want to sleep well. We want to eat well. We want to drink water mostly and exercise. There's a whole bunch of things. A little sunlight is good. There's a long list of things for health. But number one on the list is going to be nasal breathing day and night. So when an adult is mouth breathing, I would probably then look to take a history to see like, okay, what are your struggles? Because mouth breathing usually comes with symptoms, whether you're 3 years old or whether you're 30 or 60 or 90. There are usually symptoms downstream that people might not be aware are connections to poor breathing, but it's how the systems in the body will malfunction. So neurologically, we will have things that go on, cognitive issues, whether we're 3 or 90, where breathing through the mouth will affect our brain function. It could be cardiovascular. Mouth breathing is the start of cardiovascular changes. Mouth breathing alone changes the blood pressure, the heart rate, and how the vessels are working. So again, the wrong ingredients are getting in there, and it's not the system isn't running right. The muscle, skeletal musculature system, digestive system, urinary system. For more the adult phase, it's reproductive system. The mouth breathing starts the process of becoming unhealthy, where we see symptoms. And then are we going to treat the symptoms or are we going to treat the cause? And returning someone to nose breathing is important.
Yeah, yeah. So this long list, I'm convinced now. Let's move towards the direction of I I realize that this is an issue, but what are practical things that a person can do? Like at home? Like where does a parent
Sure.
begin? Because before we jump into any, like intervention of some sort that is formal, there's usually or always something to do at home to help the
Yes.
situation. So what should every parent be like obviously watchful for mouth breathing, but what should they also be watchful to do or to implement in their
Oh,
normal home
sure.
environments?
Yes. One of the things that is very simple to do at home is practice very good nasal hygiene. And so we're all very good with other hygiene, body hygiene, tooth hygiene. We clean up, we're brushing our teeth, we're flossing, we're doing all this dental hygiene. But the nose has been left behind. There is no nasal hygiene anymore. So getting back to nasal hygiene would mean on a daily basis, we should be blowing our nose at regular intervals and using a natural nasal spray. Because if we recognize there is mouth breathing going on day or night, we want to restore. Basically, you're trying to have as clean and clear a nasal chamber as possible to make sure that the brain knows, hey, that air is going through so well, I don't have to open your mouth. Because your brain will open your mouth to breathe without you knowing it. So, nasal hygiene, we talk about minimum twice a day, morning and nighttime, kind of like when we brush our teeth. We brush our teeth when we wake up, we brush them when we go to bed. Let's clean our nose minimum twice a day. We blow the nose so we get the stuff out. Then we use natural nasal sprays. I don't like to use the things that have steroids in them or chemicals or other pharmaceuticals. Stick with like a natural nasal spray. Simple saline is good.
Give me
You
some
can use that
examples.
multiple times. Oh, the clear products. And they spell it with an X because it uses xylitol. So that's a natural product. Your body produces it. XLEAR. And it's like an X with a C kind of combined. And
Okay.
it's XLEAR.com, clear.com. There's a clear nasal spray for kids. They make it for
Okay.
adults. They even make neti pots. When you get older, you can use a little neti pot action. So flushing out the nasal chamber is really important. For children, it's blowing the nose and using natural nasal sprays. And if we do that twice a day as a minimum, that's great. For kids who we meet and we recognize based on parent interview, oh, my child really struggles to breathe through their nose. We notice a lot of mouth breathing day or night. We recommend multiple times a day. So we would recommend every other hour do nasal hygiene because the more you clean and clear, the better it helps you to get back to nasal breathing. One of the things is congestion. And when we do start to mouth breathe, the sad thing is this is such a vicious cycle. When the jaws are a little small and we start to mouth breathe, the nose actually starts to close itself off. it's that use it or lose it principle. If we don't use the muscles, we don't keep them. Well, if we don't use our nose, it starts to shrink inside, even worse. So getting it clean and clear is important. So nasal hygiene can be done multiple times a day with natural products, and it does help you get on the right track for at least keeping the nose clean and clear. It's not going to make your jaws bigger, but then, we'll talk about a couple things younger that can work, like 0 to 3.
Yeah.
0 to 3, there's a pathway to help kind of start going in the right direction. And this can be all done at home, but it does take a little bit of learning. So I recommend people look for things like baby-led weaning and solid starts. So baby-led weaning and solid starts, they both have websites and Instagram to follow. I don't receive any compensation to talk about them or to refer them. I'm not connected financially to them at all, for full disclosure. But I do recommend to my patients to read their books and do their research there, because basically baby-led weaning and solid starts, what they do is they teach new parents how to properly transition a child from breastfeeding into solid foods instead of the mush or the purees. So this is a significant departure. When we look at the industrial Western model, we use the baby food, so we use the purees a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's the softer foods that play a big role early on in developing the tongue, lip, and cheek dysfunction.
Ah.
So a human being isn't really built to have soft food. The natural world, prior to the Western industrial model, the breastfeeding is followed by hard food. And the consistency is that whatever tough natural diet that existed, it wasn't pureed or blended, it wasn't a mush. So it corresponds with about 6 to 9 months old with head control and grasping and pulling. But when the natural world has this ability to transition to harder food, the tongue, lips, and cheeks learn strength and function. And the harder food makes the muscles work more. When the muscles work more, the jaws grow better, which is why we don't have crowded teeth in pre-industrial, pre-Western cultures. There's no such thing as crowded teeth or bad bites in pre-industrial, pre-Western cultures. They have all 32 teeth too. They keep all their wisdom teeth. So their jaws grow perfectly and have beautiful straight teeth. So what I'm doing for you is I'm just sharing anthropology research. None of this is my own discovery. I was not around hundreds of years ago when this was done. But when you track all the cultures around the world, the anthropology results are the same. Cultures that are pre-industrial, pre-Western living do not have crowded teeth, bad bites, and wisdom teeth not fitting. All the jaws grow beautifully. They have excellent teeth and bones, and they have the hard food early in life. But as soon as you're switching and growing to a Western industrial model, baby food is inserted. And when the baby food is inserted, the tongue is becoming a drinker, not a chewer. And the muscles don't have to chew, they just have to swallow. So when you're not chewing properly the harder foods, your muscles are weaker. So it's a use it or lose it muscle principle. It's like going to the gym. When you go to the gym, you work out, you develop all the muscles, you look great, you feel great, you're stronger. But if you don't go to the gym, they go away. We don't get to keep it.
Yeah.
That's what soft food does to the oral muscles. Soft food weakens the muscles and it trains them to be a drinker only, but that doesn't exert force on the bones to grow. So sadly, early soft food is the cause.
What about teeth? Like, my understanding is you don't give hard food till the kids have teeth to chew them.
Right. And so that is a Western industrial model for thinking and chewing. But the the anthropology research shows 6 to 9 months old, whether they're a teeth or not, that's when you start gnawing on harder things. And the gums are capable, like the gums are capable, like a child can gnaw on something harder. And then as the teeth start coming in, okay, it gets even harder. So there's really, it's the avoiding the purees and the blending of the food. That's really too soft. It becomes a drinking swallow. And it's like, again, the muscles, if we're using the harder consistency, they will grow the bones better.
When you say
Yeah.
hard, I'm thinking of like hard, hard. But now I'm starting to think that you're calling hard food is something even in its natural state, such as a cooked vegetable. Are you calling that a hard food? If it's retaining its form, then it's a
Well,
hard food?
in the natural world before industrial Western, there wasn't really much cooking of the food, very little cooking of the food. It was you were eating just whatever you grew or caught, and with very little preparing. So there's no processing, there's no preserving, there's no softening, there's no ingredients really added to it. So if you grew it, you would pick it up and eat it. And if you maybe caught it, like an animal would be cured. So curing is with some salt, curing it for a little salt so it can last. This way, okay, if you caught a deer, you basically we would call it beef jerky.
Yeah.
But jerky is curing with some salt, and that becomes a stick you can just gnaw on, a chunk you can gnaw on. So it's not about, let's say, um, avoiding the consistency of the food. It's the timing and how it's introduced for the infant as they become able to. So in the natural world, the body has instincts on how it can do things, but you would, whether it was caught from the land or the sea or grown in the ground, anything like that, with little preparation becomes a harder consistency. And certainly without the blending going on, you have to work, your muscles have to work harder. So, somewhere between 6 and 9 months old until 2 years old, that's really where there's the overwhelming majority of the jaw growth. It happens to be 54% between 0 and 2. So you want to take advantage of that, but we need the muscles working right. So that early hard diet is the key. And we don't have that anymore, which is why pretty much we see, oh my good, it looks like every child is going to need braces or every child can't fit their wisdom teeth. The rates are so high with the early soft food, we lose the early growth, which is why at 3 years old, we see right away, oh, these teeth have no space. Smaller jaws come from weaker dysfunctional muscles, but that weak dysfunctional muscles came from the early soft food primarily. So baby-led weaning and solid starts. It's
Yes.
basically instructions, like because no one really knows how to do that transition anymore. It wasn't handed down generation to generation. It used to be a natural occurrence that this is how you feed the infant, but we don't have that anymore. So those are instruction manuals, basically, how to introduce solid foods to your child, because it's a totally foreign concept today. We're 7 generations past industrial Western living.
Right. Absolutely. And I also think of choking, like it is very much in our minds that if we give
Mm,
solid, hard foods to kids, that they're going to be choking. So that's an added
right.
area to think about.
Yes, and that's a real legitimate thing because when you're using the softer foods and you have weaker dysfunctional muscles, the pureed foods early train the tongue to stay low and basically swallow. So you're a drinker. Your pureed baby foods are like drinking. So the moment you give someone something harder, well, the muscle memory is I'm going to swallow it. So but it goes in the lung. So they choke on the choking incidence only climbs in the industrial Western world. It doesn't exist in the pre-industrial, pre-Western world because the child never had that episode of the softer foods. So if you don't have the mush as the early food and you go right from breastfeeding, you're transitioning to harder things to gnaw on, your tongue is always a chewing type of motion. So you have the rest, the function, the swallowing patterns are for chewing, not for drinking. We're tricking the tongue into being a drinker for 2 straight years. And then all of a sudden we expect to put something in there and have it go well. No, the child doesn't know to chew on that. It knows to swallow something. So we've made the muscles do the wrong thing. So yeah, the choking incident is very real. That's why I send people to baby-led weaning and solid starts. There's a way to do this. It's a gradual transition, but from 0 to 3, that's a real thing you could do at home to get going and heading in the right direction. Having an early hard diet gives you back your muscles and jaw growth.
This is very different information from what I was raised with and what most people that I know teach. And so this is fascinating, and I think that it's really valid to take into account and for parents to consider how do I do that. And I'm glad you've given us a resource with baby-led weaning and solid starts to be able to a pathway to be able to know what would be those steps, because half the battle is going to be changing our mind, on how
Yes,
we can do
and
it.
most people are shocked to even learn that this anthropology research exists. Basically,
Yeah.
I'm telling you that you don't get your jaw size from genetics. You get it from, it's an acquired condition. Your crowded teeth and your bad bites, it's not genes. It's muscle dysfunction. You have an acquired condition here. We introduce something different early on, and then we have weak muscles, we have smaller jaws, we have crowded teeth. This is not a genetic condition. This is an acquired condition, so it is reversible.
Wow. Okay.
And then
So
if it's not, if we don't reverse it early, then we have things we can do to help out later on.
okay. Okay. And that would be what your business is then, to help people later on in life to expand the jaw in whatever ways it needs expanding. Is that right?
Sure, yeah. So at 3 years old, when you recognize, well, the baby teeth are together, we know what that'll lead to. And we already at 3, 4, or 5 could see, hey, we might have symptoms like mouth breathing or grinding the teeth, or worse, like waking up at night, bedwetting, ear infections, nightmares, all the things that are restless sleep related. Those are all poor breathing patterns from the smaller jaws. So it could be anything from having a headache to digestive issues to being dysregulated, behavioral issues, sensory issues. All of the things related to a poor quality night's sleep through that mouth breathing have relationships to how we're going to function during the day and what we might observe. So our goal is to see, does the child have, let's say, symptoms? Are there things parents notice? Number one. Number two, can we look in the mouth and see, are the teeth together? If the teeth are together and the bite isn't right, we know, well, you have smaller jaws. So if you've got symptoms in smaller jaws, you have the combination that should be treated early. Because if you wait, it only gets worse. So no one outgrows smaller jaws. They don't catch up over time. And the teeth aren't going to go from, hey, my baby teeth are together, but my permanent teeth will be fine. That doesn't exist. That's not how we grow. So it's only going to get worse over time, which means the breathing gets worse over time. The symptoms increase. So when kids are untreated, we know over time these symptoms are going to increase and more medications get used. So all of a sudden we start getting more medicine being used to treat these symptoms that they have when you really should have at least one of the components of jaw growth. So I've been doing it in my office for over 2 decades, treating kids in the practice. And then about 10 years in, I started teaching other offices to do it. Generally, the dental community is a tooth-focused type of approach where we treat the teeth, we treat the symptom, and teeth need help too. So we don't want to say that's bad, but I go the opposite way and I focus on the foundation. So the jaw growth. Let's focus on the jaws because that's our real problem. How do we get the jaws to grow earlier? So in our practice, we would combine three things to treat a child. Number one will be the nasal hygiene with the sprays. Like you got to do some work at home to get that clean and clear. Number two would be the guidance appliances. I briefly mentioned them before, but giving a child an appropriate guide to wear, what the guide does is it redirects the muscles. So if we know our jaws are small because our muscles aren't, let's say, doing their job right, we want to get the muscles back. So getting the muscles back, resting, functioning, and strengthened properly gives us our jaw growth back. So the guides are meant to be worn 1 hour a day plus overnight. And they basically, the guide, when it's in place, it helps train the tongue where to rest, how to swallow. Like going up, it has to go up to swallow. So we start to deliver the muscle function. The guide pushes away the lips and cheeks. It won't let the lips and cheeks swallow for you anymore. So it breaks that pattern up, which is a good thing. So what the guide does flips the muscles in our favor. When the muscles are in our favor, we watch the jaws grow. When the jaws grow, the breathing improves, the symptoms fade away. And the third item we add is myofunctional therapy. And so myofunctional therapy is working with all of the muscles of the head and neck to make sure they are resting, functioning, and strengthened properly. And that accelerates the jaw growth. So certainly there's a pathway to do those three things in an office. After a while, a few of us got together and we decided, this is very few of us are doing this. So parents don't have this access to this type of care. Very few offices do this type of growth and development.
That leads me
Could we
to a
build?
question, that very thing. Where do
Yeah,
parents go and what can they do at home?
certainly. If you happen to have a dental office that is doing growth and development, airway work early in your community, that's fabulous. Like you could go to them and they know what to do with your 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. If you don't have someone local, we built a model to do these things remotely. And that's where Toothpillow comes in because you could visit www.toothpillow.com. When you go to toothpillow.com, there's a lot of information in that website for parents to learn a lot more, all the connections that are made. But meanwhile, there's a tab there, Is My Child a Candidate? When you open that tab, we do the same thing. We ask all the sleeping and breathing symptom questions. So we have a long list, about 21 to 25 items we need to learn about your child. Parents fill it out. But then there's also a place to upload some photographs because if I can see pictures of the teeth and the bite, then I'm looking for that combination. Does the child have symptoms? Are we struggling with these symptoms? Do I see the teeth and the bite as underdeveloped jaws? With that combination, I know, hey, that child would benefit from early treatment. The parent submits these things. I screen them. I screen, oh, approved for remote care. So if I can approve you, we have an app, we have a support team. You're connected via the app. We send you what you need to your house. Then, of course, through the app, we monitor daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, so we can see that you're doing the compliance, doing the things at home. And we can connect via Zoom to do myofunctional therapy. We can connect you to a myofunctional therapist to do the exercises, just like we are talking today. They'll teach you how to use your tongue, lips, and cheeks appropriately to get that better jaw growth going. And so basically, Toothpillow was built to solve for access and affordability. It'll cost you less to do this than going into a private office, but mostly for access because so few offices do this type of work. And so a parent could visit that and learn, is their child a candidate? Generally, I can approve about 75% of the kids because 25% of the kids will be too severe to be able to treat remotely. I need to refer them to an office. And what we do then is we have a locator of the offices that do treat the kids early appropriately, and we'll guide you towards someone that we know. And we're hoping to find one in your community. If not, we'll find you the closest person who knows how to help your child early. And that's much better than being told, oh, let's wait, or it's normal, or they'll outgrow it. None of those things help the child, and they're struggling now. So we can either help you remotely or we'll get you to an office that can do this in office.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, backpedal a little bit. Where
Yeah.
did the name Tooth Pillow come from?
Okay, so one of our founding members, Dr. Callie Hale, she was using these in her practice, much like I was. and she started referring to them as tooth pillow. Like your head has a pillow when you go to bed.
So,
You're
like the
asking a
appliance you put in your
4-year-old.
mouth?
Yeah, the appliance that goes in your mouth is a
Oh,
tooth pillow. So when you're talking to 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're little kids, trying to be playful. Well, you know how your head has a pillow when you go to bed? You rest your head on a pillow. You need to rest your teeth on a pillow. This is your tooth pillow. And so they're very soft, they're very comfortable. So I believe the credit should go to her. There might be one other person back in the day that said that as well. And I feel bad giving it to the wrong person or not acknowledging both. But there could be another. I remember hearing it from her, but tooth pillow, it's just an affectionate way to call an appliance. Basically,
sure.
we named it that because we're treating children. It's a company, we're a company,
Mhm.
but we deliver treatment remotely. And the treatment we're delivering is basically has been used for decades. These are not new things. It's just rarely used by the dental community because they tend to focus on the teeth instead of the jaw growth early.
Sure, sure. Well, I am glad you're talking about this. This is something that is a support, certainly, for speech and language development, because having the jaws and the tongue working right and the cheeks working right is critical for speech. We know that tongue
Yes.
strength, lip strength, teeth strength, airway strength, these are the mechanisms here that we are using to be able to speak.
Oh, yeah, it's a big component. Speech issues are significant. We see them in most
Oh, yeah.
kids. I mean, parents, it's part of the form when we fill it out. Do we have any type of speech issue there? And sure enough, the simple way to think about it is we're going to call the tongue normal size. It is the right size. Your tongue is the right size. You were not given the wrong size tongue. But if it doesn't actually build its own home correctly, your jaws are small from that weak dysfunctional activity. Well, you could have a normal tongue with a smaller mouth. That's what we basically have when we see crowded teeth and bad bites. So now you have a tongue that's the right size, but the home is too small. That's where we start talking about, hey, you got a big dog in a little cage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a big dog in a little cage, it sounds off. There's going to be a lot of rattling going on, bouncing off the walls. So the tongue is expected to sound beautiful, but it's in the wrong size home. So we're trying to have a 10-person dinner party in a phone booth. It's going to be very noisy. It's going to be very noisy. So part of the whole issue is getting the right size, and having a match can improve speech alone. But we already know, wait, the muscles are weak, dysfunctional. So it's not just the right size, it's also the training. And that's where I mentioned myofunctional therapy, but speech language pathology. We send a lot of kids that way too, because anyone who can help with the musculature makes an improvement for the child. So we call it collaborative care. It's basically who can we send that child to participate in the treatment. So on my end, the dental side, I can help with the jaw size because I can redirect the growth with appliances and stuff. But I do need either the speech language pathology or the myofunctional therapy. Either one knows how to work with the muscles
Mm-hmm.
to get them trained properly. And of course, with the proper training can come better growth, but also with the better growth can come, I got some more space to work with. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing training the tongue, lips, and cheeks to behave in that tiny phone booth. But what if we make a bigger room and then train them as well? So yes, collaborative care works best. If we're working together, we get the best results for the child. Sometimes alone, we come up short. If I only do my work, I don't get the full result. I can make the jaw a little bigger, but if I don't have the training in the muscles, I don't get the full speech and etc.
Mm-hmm.
Then if speech language pathology or myofunctional therapy work alone, they'll get an amount of improvement. Those are wonderful things. We can see improvements, but we might reach a wall or a point where, hey, this is the best we're getting. We're coming up a little short. Some kids will go all the way. Some might not. Then we start thinking, ooh, together we solve that child.
Yeah.
So collaborative care is a lot. And the last item I'll throw in there is tongue, lip, and cheek ties.
Ah,
A
yes.
lot of people, they hear it for the first time. People are becoming more aware of this tongue tie, lip tie, cheek tie. Certainly, when we have a tongue tie, lip tie, or cheek tie, that's an actual physical restriction, and it does affect how the muscles behave. So we will sound differently if we have a tongue, lip, or cheek tie in there. And that needs to be diagnosed. That's where, again, speech language pathology, myofunctional therapy, they're usually good at finding those.
Yeah.
And if you find something that's restricting, can we get that child to 100% without releasing it? Or does it actually need to be released to get to 100% outcome? And there's improvement to gain before releasing, but then sometimes releasing makes the difference. That I would say is another big thing to make sure you are looking for,
Mm-hmm.
because there are kids who have tongue, lip, or cheek ties where they don't need them released. They just need to have the therapy to get there. But then there are kids who do have tongue, lip, or cheek tie, and they actually need the release to get the full result. And
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a growing thing, having the knowledge of it, and then becoming more aware of this. so that parents have more choices to make. We never force anybody to do anything, obviously, but
Right.
when you learn more about it, you might recognize that a qualified person making the diagnosis and then educating the parent can lead them to better opportunities for their child. So you're looking to you're looking to hear about and learn about those things, not just be told, oh, they don't have that. Don't worry about that. Tongue tie is not a thing, because we hear the craziest things out there. I do have very well-educated physicians who will tell a patient, oh, you don't have a tongue tie. Nobody does. That's not even a thing. And so when you're dealing with that could be a rough place to be when you're looking and measuring and doing all the analysis and to know that child has a severe tongue tie, but they don't even acknowledge it exists. So you can imagine that educating that parent is a little more challenging today.
Yeah,
So work in that direction.
I had a parent a few years back where the doctor had said, don't worry about it. And then at age 6, they decided to release it. And then there was no follow-up. And so it tightened up and they ended up doing a secondary releasing of it, which then it was so difficult. It was just heartbreaking to see
Right.
7 or 8, something like that, for the
Oh,
second surgery. And man, it was do it young.
yeah.
Do it young.
Yeah.
When all
We
the
hear
tissues are
that.
not scarring, when all the tissues are just young and mild, they're not stiff and hard. Oh, I felt so bad for that student. So yes, what you're saying
Yeah.
is so
And
important.
sure. And the reason you want to learn as much as you can is so that if you're going to do the release, you'd like to do it as best you can. And we never recommend release alone.
Right.
Again, it's like anything else alone, we might not get the right result. And so certainly, usually we're starting with the therapy first, like either
Yes.
speech language pathology or the myofunctional therapist. They're going to do the work first. You have to actually lead to a release.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the release is done, you continue the care after. So there's a lot of work leading to a release and a lot of work after it. That's when you have like the right outcome. Otherwise, that example does exist where people learn, oh, there's a tie, let's cut it or release it. And there's no pre-care or aftercare.
Mm-hmm.
That won't be successful. That it would be rare to have that be successful. Most of the
Yes.
time it's you got to do the collaboration and properly it goes well. It's like anything else. You do it right and do all the right things, you're going to have a nice outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, this student had come to me right in between, in the middle of them.
Hmm.
And oh, anyway, that's a different story. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here today and giving us a wealth of information on a topic that is much lesser known and yet does usher in more questions. It ushers in concerns and answers. So I appreciate that. That's great to
Thank
know.
you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. As a reminder, we have 2 wonderful things for you today. First, visit Toothpillow's website, and that would be with Dr. Ben, who you just listened to today. You select, is my child a candidate? And you fill in the online assessment form. And when it asks you, who can we thank for referring to? Be sure to list language of play. Now you leave off the word the, just language of play, to receive $200 off treatment. And when you check the box for a $50 virtual assessment and still use that promo code language of play, your fee is waived. It is my hope that all of you take advantage of that virtual assessment. You can't go wrong. It's free with your promo code. The second thing is for those of you that live in or near Rochester, Minnesota. For you, go to respirawell.com and schedule your appointment. You can also call 507-701-1127 to schedule your call. And when you mention the language of play, you will receive $25 off of your in-person evaluation. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.